The people of Couran Cove have been deprived of fundamental human rights for more than a year. For more than a year, they have been without power, water, gas, and sewerage, without dignity. The community homed residents, from children to the elderly into their 90s, to people with disabilities, deprived of their rights to water, their right to adequate housing. They have continually pleaded with all levels of government for help. These pleas have mostly been ignored and brushed off. Though Australia has legal obligations in respect to these human rights and their protection, every department claims they have no authority and cannot interfere if there was a legal case going on. The Human Rights Commission state that they cannot get involved with it, as their focus is on discrimination. Clearly, the protection of the most basic of human rights has been ignored. The government has not protected the people from these human rights violations, whether through apathy, incompetence, ignorance, or corruption of the government. The people's pleas have fallen on deaf ears. A letter was sent to the Gold Coast City Council CEO inquiring about two credible sources who had reported that Mayor Tom Tate had been invited to the Whitsundays by the service provider who shut down the water, electricity, and gas of Couran Cove. They wanted to know, did Tom Tate get an invitation? And did Tom Tate accept that invitation? 10 months later, there's still been no response. People are wondering whether, and if so, how much corruption has played into their suffering. Where is the transparency? Is trust in the government not all but lost by this point? The Australian government ratified the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. With this comes certain obligations that the Australian government must follow. Part of this includes General Comment 15, which states, under no circumstances should an individual be deprived of the minimum essential level of water. The Australian government has 3 requirements: to respect, to protect, and to fulfill. The obligation to protect requires the Australian government to protect people against anyone and any individuals, companies, or groups from depriving people of their natural, fundamental human right to water. The obligation to fulfill requires the government to step in when the community is unable to provide it for themselves. Furthermore, it states that all victims of violations to the right of water should be entitled to adequate reparations, compensations, guarantees of non-repetition. National Ombudsman, human rights commissions, and similar institutions should be permitted to address violations of the right. Judges, adjudicators, and members of the legal profession should be encouraged by the government to pay greater attention to violations of human rights to water in execution of their functions. The right to adequate housing. All with the right to adequate housing should have sustainable access to safe drinking water, energy for cooking, heating and lighting, sanitation and washing facilities, means of food storage, refuse disposal, site drainage and emergency services. All of these should be affordable. According to the University of Tasmania Law Review, and I quote, "In the context of the interpretation of legislation, the High Court has explained that the courts should presume that the legislature did not intend to interfere with fundamental human rights, unless such an intention is clearly manifested by unmistakable and unambiguous language." Clearly, many of these rights have been taken from the people of Couran Cove. Their human rights have been violated, and the Australian government has stood by for a year not addressing these human rights violations, breaking their treaties. It's time to take action, Australian government. It's time to do something now. And please, everyone who sees this, go to savethecove.com or hungerstrike.au and sign our petition to restore human rights to the people of Couran Cove, to return dignity to their lives after more than a year of suffering. hungerstrike.au for more information. SaveTheCove.com to sign the petition. Let's restore the people's human rights.